Howdy readers, I'm Jason. This is Chapter and Verse, and I'm feeling considerably better. Still not better, but I've started taking Claritin now instead of Dayquil, and it's helped enormously. So I think what's been going on with me has been some kind of allergic reaction to all the smoke in the air from the fires in California. So anyway, I'm on the mend. Now what I want to talk to you about this evening is the 2018 Man Booker long list. This year, the long list included a book called Sabrina, as most of you know by now, I'm sure, by a writer named Nick Drnaso. And it's a graphic novel. And this is the first time in the 50-year history of the Booker Prize that a graphic novel has ever been longlisted. And here's the thing about the Booker Prize. The Booker Prize is a literary prize that is given specifically to novels. Okay, it is a prize that exists for novels. If there is a novella that comes out, a short novel that comes out in a year, and if that short novel is marketed by its publisher as a novella, it is ineligible for the Booker Prize. If a book comes out and it's a collection of short stories, even if it reads like a novel, if it is marketed by its publisher as a collection of short stories, it is ineligible for the Booker Prize. Okay. All right. So basically what I'm saying is graphic novels have never been longlisted because they are not novels. I went back through and I read the Booker Prize guidelines and the submission kind of rules and all that jazz. And it's a prize for novels. So you walk into a bookstore, okay, and you find the graphic novel section. You will find in the graphic novel section even nonfiction graphic novels. Now, I refer to them in my own collection as graphic memoirs, but that is not how they are referred to in the industry. In bookstores, in the publishing world, they're referred to as graphic novels. Even a non-fiction graphic novel is referred to as graphic novel. They are shelved in graphic novels, non-fiction and fiction, shelved in graphic novels. They are not shelved with literature and fiction. The graphic novel is a distinct narrative form that has more in common with cinema than it does with the novel. And I do not say this in any derisive way or any dismissive or contemptuous way. As many of you know, I'm a huge film buff. I love movies probably as much as I love books in many ways. I wanted to mention a video that Neil Griffiths did on his channel earlier this week that goes some distance toward explaining why a graphic novel is not a novel. Okay, in that video, Neil discusses how novelists make sentences. Okay, they are sentence makers. They make paragraphs. Okay, he discusses how novelists reveal the world, reveal human psychology through language. Okay, that's what a novel is. It is a narrative arc. It is a story that, to borrow Neil's word, discloses reality and expands on reality exclusively through language. Graphic novels have words in them, for the most part. Most graphic novels have words in them, but they're not about the word. Maybe 5% of the meaning in a graphic novel is constructed through language. They construct meaning through images, through illustrations, and not just through the pictures themselves, right, as pictures, but really more so through the decisions that the illustrator makes, okay, with regard to perspective. Essentially, if you look at a panel, right, an illustrated panel in a graphic novel, and you imagine it as something created by a filmmaker, then you can imagine where the camera is being put. And then you're forced to think about why the director, why the illustrator is putting the camera in that place. What is achieved by that? And that is how meaning is constructed in a graphic novel. Now I'm going to give you some examples of that here in a second. But first I want to talk about a film. Excuse me. This is A Little Princess, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. Okay, he is most famous for the third Harry Potter film, for Gravity, for directing Children of Men, which Adam over at Memento Mori has been talking about of late. But this is an early film of his, A Little Princess, and I love this movie. Now, in this film, the orphaned Sarah Crew finds herself essentially just abused in this orphanage. I think around World War I is when it takes place. She's forced to live in the attic, forced to be a servant, etc., etc. And the cruel headmistress of this orphanage is Miss Minchin. Late in the film, there is a scene in the attic when Miss Minchin is looking to humiliate and grind Sarah Crew down, okay? And I don't remember exactly what she says to her, but the camera is looking down on Sarah Crew, the little girl. It is looking up at Miss Minchin, okay? Now, by virtue of those shots doing what they're doing, we're given to understand that Miss Minchin is the one with the power in this situation, and that Sarah Crew is the one who is being required to submit, who is being cowed. And then, in that same scene, Sarah, more so than she has done yet in the film, stands up for herself and insists on her dignity. And when she essentially tells Miss Minchin off, Alfonso Cuarón, who has been looking up with his camera at Miss Minchin, brings the camera like this on Miss Minchin. So we start looking down on Miss Minchin while Sarah's talking, okay? And then when we switch over to the shot of Sarah, we've been looking down on her, right, as she's being put in her place by Miss Minchin. And as soon as she stands up for herself, while she's talking, the camera moves lower and begins looking up at her, okay? So visually, we are given to understand the shift in the power dynamic, all right? Some of that is conveyed in the scene through the dialogue, but Sarah could have just as easily said what she said, and Miss Minchin, you know, could have basically said, "Cry me a river," you know, get back to fucking work. But that's not what happens. Miss Minchin is put in her place, and we're meant to understand this visually, all right, through what Cuarón does with the camera. Now, the same thing happens in a graphic novel, all right? So this here is Blankets by Craig Thompson. This is a graphic novel, a nonfiction graphic novel, and I want to just show you a couple of examples of this, all right? So here's a scene where Craig Thompson's little brother, all right, they're just little kids at the time, and I don't know if they've been roughhousing or what in bed, I can't remember. I've read this a couple times, but it's been years. And their father, okay, their big, kind of mean, burly, Paul Bunyan-looking father, he comes in and takes the little brother out of the room, and he's like, "All right, you're gonna sleep in the closet." And this is what it says on the page: "Uninsulated, unlit, and uninhabited, except by spiders and vermin. We heard skittering within the walls at night, and a few dust-filled cardboard boxes. The cubbyhole was best left forgotten." However, if we look at the illustrations, the father is trying to open up the fold-away bed, and the little boy is so scared of the room, he imagines the fold-away bed as the mouth of an alligator or something, right? And then he's locked into the room. We see his nails dragged down on the door there in the bottom over here. All right, the meaning is generated through the pictures, through the decisions that Craig Thompson made as an illustrator, not as a writer. And yeah, we are given to understand the terror that the little boy feels through the visuals. Another example, page 78 and 79. So Craig Thompson's character is going off to church camp. He's being ostracized by the other kids. If you look down here, we got two groups of kids going off, and then Craig Thompson in the middle. His isolation is made clear visually down here, right? Look how small he is over in the corner, while these other kids group together and, you know, cackle and laugh and goof around. The emotional depth The richness and texture of lived experience is conveyed almost exclusively through illustration in a graphic novel. These same things are conveyed entirely in novels through carefully and painstakingly manipulated language. Now, some people might think that I or Steve Donahue or Neil Griffiths or any of the other people who are up in arms about Sabrina making the long list, some people might think that we're being elitist somehow, that we're implying that novels are innately better, are a superior art form to graphic novels. And that is not at all what I'm saying. All right. I would take blankets over any Haruki Murakami novel any day of the week. All right. This book is ridiculously better than his novel Kafka on the Shore. What we're insisting is that novels and graphic novels are radically different narrative modes. They demand completely different skills from their writers, and they demand utterly different disciplines from their readership. And as such, a graphic novel has no business being nominated, being longlisted for the Man Booker Prize, a prize for novels. It doesn't make any sense, okay? Now, we might look at, real briefly here, a graphic novel like this. This is The Arrival by Sean Tan. Now, this is a graphic novel that has been widely praised on BookTube by Sophie at Portal and the Pages and other people. It's a graphic novel that I've read, that I really like and admire. If you look at it, I mean, look how beautifully illustrated that is. Now, this is also a graphic novel that has absolutely no words in it. And what I'm saying is that because the Booker Prize has seen fit to longlist Sabrina, a graphic novel, it opens the door to, at some point down the road, a graphic novel with absolutely no language in it at all being longlisted for the Booker Prize. And how absurd would that seem if a book like The Arrival, which has no language in it whatsoever, was longlisted for the premier literary fiction prize in England. So that's it in a nutshell. I just wanted to vent a little bit about that, kind of throw my 2 cents in with what Neil's 2 cents were earlier this week. And yeah, and just try to generate maybe a little bit more conversation about this, because I think too many people are kind of just sitting back and accepting the fact that that Sabrina has been longlisted, when I think it's insane. I think it's crazy. The more I think about it, the more upset it makes me. So I will see all of you guys later, maybe even later this weekend. I got a lot of reading to do. I'm taking a pasta making class in the morning, so it should be a pretty full couple of days. But until next time, adios.